Wherefore art thou, my beloved timer? Come forth. Hello. Welcome back. Today is Frost's Day. As usual, I'm going to start by posting the Twitch archive Parley forum, so if you want to submit questions for the break that I would answer next week, this stream slot next week, not the next stream, submit them through that form that I posted in chat. Looking forward to them. There have been some excellent ones lately, may I say. And yeah, we'll get started. We're going to talk about Frost's abilities, humble though they may be, and then get down to some builds, especially like Helminth abilities and augment stuff. And yeah, you know, basically we're covering what I feel is fit to print about the frame, and I'm trying to be as broad-minded as possible about what that is, not just builds I like or that I think are good. But I do tend to be critical of, you know, I have every frame in the game, so if it seems like there's some frame that does the same exact thing but kind of better, I tend to save it for that frame. Nevertheless, I have, since we started Framework, come to have a broader perspective on that. I'm trying to be a bit more open-minded about, you know, Warframe is not the hardest game. So maybe if a build is really cool and it does work, like you can do the game with it. I don't know, man. Like if it's a really weird, unique way to play the game and it does function, why not? You know, I just personally feel like there's really no sense if we don't limit it to builds that like at least get the job done. You could just make anything, and I don't think that that's worth telling everybody about. But can we possibly surpass the heights attained by Snowplow Frost? No, but I really appreciate the gung-ho attitude. We will try, and we will fail. Welcome back, Uncle Nate. Flame Flash, Mr. Poot, Pixel, Bennett, Ragnavar, welcome back. How y'all doing? That's 3 Snowplow Frost jokes so far. Excellent. Snowplow Frost is the Snow Globe Slam true damage, yeah? Yep. Yeah, that's what I call it anyway. It's legitimately kind of good, very unique, and Frost has a lot of abilities that mostly just do that anyway. So I think it's pretty good. I don't know. It's like, what else? And I do think there's at least one other thing, but anyway, let's get started right away. We will find an appearance that doesn't have any Helminth abilities on it, which might be kind of hard. It is kind of hard. I actually have 3 loadouts that I actually have used in the past for Frost, so that was actually somewhat challenging. Uncle Nene, you said, I vote that the first thing we do is design a fashion for Snowplow Frost that makes him actually look like those orange snowplows. What did you say? No further questions, please. Playing 5D chess with multiverse time travel over here. Greater C, welcome back. I thought Snowplow Frost was the one with the Lavos infusion to turn him into a physical snowplow. That's an idea. No, but yes. Like, yeah, I guess it is. That's a good idea. I wish to introduce a motion to retract my previous request. Granted. Some people's snowplows in the area might be yellow. I tried to capture that a little bit by making the energy color yellow. I also thought that like you could do a yellow snow thing. But where I've lived my whole life, they look more like this. And I reckon most people still kind of like Frost's legs look so much like a snowplow. Like, look, that's so snowplowy. We really lucked out with this one. Like, there's no way they did that on purpose. Maybe a designer might have thought like Frost, snow, a machine, snow, a snowplow. Maybe. I wonder. I wish we could hear from the person who made this, because it really is uncanny, isn't it? Just to clarify, by the way, like normal Frost Prime, like you see what I'm trying to, like obviously they're like stalagmites, you know, like spears of ice growing up out of the ground. Sure, yeah, but like for real, his legs really. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know. And this is the Grost skin, of course, the Grenier style skin by Faben. So we are modifying something a little bit here, but like for real, it looks very, very similar to a snowplow. Anyway, enough of that for now. And truly only for now. Let's leave it on the snowplow thing, yeah. We'll go over the basic abilities like I usually like to do, get everybody on the same page, make sure there's nothing I'm overlooking. And then we'll get into some builds. Obviously, with Snowplow Frost first, don't worry, but other stuff too. There's not a lot to say about that build, really. Anyway, passive. Unfortunately, pretty bad. You have a very low chance to freeze the attacker. Now, it's got a very long duration. The thing is that there are pretty much no melee enemies in Warframe that have fast attack speed. If there was an enemy like a heavy gunner, but melee, this would be sick against those enemies, because fairly reliably, you would stun them while they're doing their piecemeal damage, and the duration is crazy. It's 20 seconds. In practice, this is one of those things where, like, the power balance and audio forces, welcome back, tier 1 sub for 21 months, thank you very much, you've come at a good time. This is one of those passives where, like, I wish that the power budget, if you will, was kind of reorganized. If it was 20% chance to freeze for 10 seconds, it sounds like that's the same, but 20 seconds is so excessive that in practice that would be a lot better. And really this would have to be even 100%. Like, you hardly ever get meleeed in Warframe, so unfortunately not that great. But it'll come up from time to time. Like surely there will be situations here and there where that will be good. But it pretty much doesn't have a passive. Freeze. Pretty simple. You fire a projectile. It's pretty slow. If it hits an enemy directly, it freezes them for a long time. Pretty much the same as the passive. The base duration is 15 seconds, but pretty much the same. On its own, I think this may be one of the weakest abilities in Warframe. It does almost nothing. But it is like sort of single target crowd control. Like, there's so many abilities that cost this amount of energy and like hit more accurately and hit many enemies and crowd control them. This is rough on its own, but it's kind of backed up by two big things. The first one is the augment's pretty good. It's an elemental buffing augment. The other thing is that this destroys snow globes. When you shoot a snow globe with it, it destroys that snow globe. One of the main reasons to keep freeze would be the ability to clean up your snow globes. We'll probably come back to that later when we do the Snowplow Frost build. But for real, I do think like I wouldn't be too quick to get rid of this. And it's mostly for snow globe. And as compensation, the augment is, pretty okay. It's a cold elemental buffing augment. Ice Wave. It's a cone. You do cold. I believe it does do a cold status effect, so it will slow enemies a bit. This is pretty whatever damage. It hits a pretty good area, but the damage is kind of eh. Again, a fairly good augment. It will make that cone have a lingering slowing effect. There's no limit on how many of those you have either. So if you build moderate duration and moderate range, you can paint a lot of the environment with slow fields, which is okay. It's all right. Snow Globe, the one, the only. Actually a fairly complicated ability under the hood. When you cast it, it gets invulnerability. It like flashes a few times. It will absorb incoming damage during that time while being invulnerable, and it will gain extra health based on what it absorbs. If you stack a snow globe on top of one that's already there, it refreshes it or kind of adds to its health, and the invulnerability period happens again. So in theory, if you cast Snow Globe again, like every 4 seconds, you will keep an area invulnerable from outside gunfire forever. No matter how much damage it takes, it'll be invulnerable the whole time. You can have 4 of them at the same time. They slow enemies inside of them. And they only block bullets coming in. So you can shoot out of them, but they can't be shot into by allies or enemies. And it's important to note that, as far as I'm aware, your shots do not damage them. So if it's in your way and you would want to shoot through it, but you can't, nothing you do will get rid of it except freeze. Oh, or enemies destroying it, I suppose. Which again, that's kind of like, sometimes the snow globe might end up in an awkward spot, and then you literally just can't, like, no matter how much you shoot it, it's never going to get destroyed. And so freeze, again, that's why I think that's a bit important. Finally, avalanche, pretty simple to round out the kit. It's a large radius freeze. It does moderately high damage, and it also reduces armor. Now, I've seen some discussion in chat about the amount of strength you need to make this fully remove armor. It's a lot. It's 250% strength. That's high. That's pretty high. Now, Warframe has gained a lot of ways to gain more strength. That's true. But a lot of them are like one instance of an ability as well, which might make this a lot of bookkeeping if you don't just build to make it have 250% strength, you know? Nevertheless, good base radius, good base duration. Removing a good amount of armor is still good, even if it doesn't remove all of it. This is a pretty good ability. If you wanted to be an ice wizard and freeze everything, this is not at all a bad way to do that. I just think it's to maximize this ability is expensive. We'll probably get into that. Again, just to briefly touch on the strength thing again, it's important to note that we've gotten many options for gaining a lot of strength. So you can absolutely have like really high range and really high strength. You don't have to trade those off, but you probably will have to sacrifice something else, you know, like convenience, for example, or you won't be able to do it quite as often, something like that. But if you want really high range and max armor reduction, the situation has gotten better for you only in that you now certainly have more options, you know? So, yeah, good stuff. Just catching back up on chat a little bit more first. Audio Forces, welcome back. No problem with a ton of gift subs. You've been extremely generous. Audio Forces has gifted this channel like over 100 subs. You don't apologize for not giving a bunch of gift subs. Awfully generous of you to still sub to me at tier 1 despite some financial issues. Thank you very much. That's awfully thoughtful. Just catching up a little bit more on some comments on Frost's kit. Uncle Nani, you said, regarding Frost's passive, I really wish the passive augment just became his default passive. It didn't require a mod slot. I actually don't remember what that augment is. I have it, but I don't remember what it is. Oh yes, it's really, really good. Wow. Yeah, so this is right. The passive augments as well, right? Like, so yeah, I mean, this should just be his passive because he kind of doesn't have a passive. But yeah, I do think that these passive augments should kind of be evaluated like the Warframe's passive. Like, this is pretty good, and you don't have to play Frost a specific way for it to activate. If you use any of his abilities, like, this will almost certainly be benefiting you. So we really should evaluate that as part of his base kit. It's pretty good. It's 200% crit chance and damage like mods. So, you know, you might have your primary with Point Strike and Vital Sense. It's kind of like you have a little bit less than 2 more Vital Senses, a little bit more than double your Point Strike, you know. It doesn't give you a flat 200% like everything red crits. It gives you, you know, like more crit mods that work like they normally do that multiply the crit the weapon has. Still very good, just not like heinously overpowered. In practice, in particular, this increases your crit damage by a lot. That's a lot of crit damage. The crit chance is still quite a bit, but that amount of crit damage is worth a lot of stats. Like, that's really, really good. I would say this is extremely difficult to argue against. It's hard to imagine playing Frost and not wanting this. Like, you might not put it on, but it's really, really good. As with many of these, it's not affected by strength, as far as I know. Positive or negative. Uncle Nene, thanks for mentioning that. I would have looked over it. As usual, I think it might seem like, do we really need to do this part? But we totally do. Something comes up every time. Ragnavar, you said, would the passive that freezes enemies on a 10% chance not be good against like Thrax scythe enemies, or no due to Overguard? Overguard probably works on this. Is it good against sentients? You know, the guys that spin? There's that one type of sentient that spins. I want to say Battleists. Maybe that's okay. In any case, still very niche, even if those things both did work. Go figure. So those are the abilities. Now we'll get into builds. And as always, we're going to talk about hopefully a variety of builds. We're going to talk about anything that I feel like is maybe like an exceptionally powerful generalist build. Any builds that are maybe a very unique way to play Frost, or a very specific or useful tool. For example, maybe they get one type of mission done in a very effective way. For example, Frost with Snow Globe is a fairly effective defense tool, so maybe making a build to maximize that would be really useful when you're doing a defense mission. It will be pretty bad when you're not doing a defense mission, which is why there is, of course, no single best build. That's not a thing. People like to say it that way. It's just clickbait. That's not really ever a useful concept. But that doesn't mean that we might not have a build that in context would be really, really good. And so something that I'm going to start doing in these is to do a bit of an overview. Like, you can sort of look at the frames-based kit and say, well, what unique things do they have? What might be a build that we'd want to cover? Again, Snow Globe, like, this is a pretty powerful objective defense tool. I think it's really mostly for stationary defense, though. If you're doing interception, I'm not sure you want the enemies to not shoot the interception point. You want them to not be there, which Frost isn't terrible at, but Snow Globe isn't particularly amazing at that job. Ice Wave Impedance is, but Snow Globe maybe not. And in a defense where the defense target is a person that runs around, I also think Snow Globe is not that great. So while Snow Globe is a very good defensive measure, I think it's kind of limited. Like, you're talking like defense or mobile defense where there's a stationary console. Otherwise, I don't know how great that is. So that's one thing, certainly. A very powerful bullet defense for those situations. We joked a lot earlier about the fashion you're seeing. Snowplow Frost. Oh, yes. Snow Globe, if enemies are inside it when you cast it, will violently hurl them outward and do true damage to them. It does like half their health. It just, no matter what their health is, they do half. As long as you fling them into a wall with the Snow Globe push, which I've been calling Snowplow Frost for a little while. It's a very reliable way to kill enemies of any level. It's just really janky to operate, and you really do want to clean up your Snow Globes. Again, like freeze becomes pretty important. Finally, I'm not sure that I would consider this to be a truly different build, but Avalanche can be built to be a very powerful individual ability. Like, just casting this can become very powerful. We may be able to get a build that is optimizing for Snow Globe to also do the Avalanche thing, you know? It would be nice to not make a build that is literally just you press the Avalanche button and it's a good ability, but that's all the build does, right? Ideally, that build would also like do other things. But because Snow Globe is kind of not affected by strength exactly, like you get the invulnerability period, which kind of the big ticket, it may end up being that there's going to be like a separate Avalanche build. And underpinning all of that is the fact that Frost does have some pretty meaningful damage buffs for guns. You've got Biting Frost, which we already talked about, but also Freeze Force. If you're going to keep Freeze to clean up your Snow Globes, at the very least, in a Snow Globe build, I'm going to hold on to this. You are getting an elemental damage buff and a powerful crit buff that are quite easy to maintain. Meaning that you do have a frame that, along with this zone control, does significantly more damage. As I often like to say, many frames have some way to do more damage and keep themselves alive and then control space. Frost definitely checks those boxes, just like almost every frame does. So really the question now is, how do we divide those things up into builds without making a bunch of builds that only do one thing? We're trying to divide them up so that we have this is what I'm trying to do, you don't have to, the densest build possible. So not a build that only does Snow Globe if the build could fit other stuff in for very little cost, which I'm sure it can. Let's Begin, of course, with Snow Globe Frost. I mean, Snow Plow Frost. How could we start anywhere else after all? Yeah, I don't know entirely what I wanna do here. This is what I had before, so an approach could be we could kind of look at what I had and revise. I'll talk about why I definitely don't like the look of this at the moment, so we'll definitely revise. But there's a couple options. So first of all, it'd be interesting if a snow plow build that's going to kill enemies by flinging them with snow globe was also like a build for defending things with snow globe. I don't know about that though, because when you do the snowplow thing, it's very convenient to have the highest possible range. When you're defending an objective, that doesn't really do, like, why, you know? That just doesn't seem necessary. Additionally, the snowplow thing doesn't benefit from strength at all, and things like Avalanche being built with strength to be good abilities are kind of redundant with the snow plow tactic because it just kills enemies. There's not really a need. Previously, we had a snow plow build and it used Ensnare. Oh yes, you gotta love Ensnare. Why Ensnare? Well, it can pull enemies together, and we found out that you can push them into terrain like the floor. You don't have to push them into a wall. If you just ensnare a group of enemies and jump on top of them and cast Snow Globe, they all die. Pretty much, you'll see. Which, yeah, like yep, that works. Yep. So let me demonstrate that really quick. Yeah, the floor, it turns out, does work. Which is sort of awful, but unfortunately we have to live in this world. Why are we here just to suffer? Okay, well, I didn't do the thing yet, but that's fine, and pow. And as you can see, a lot of them hit off the floor and shattered for a lot of damage. We can pull them together and then go boop, and a lot of them shatter against the floor and get crushed and die. Not all of them take enough damage. As you can see, they don't all take like exactly half their damage. I don't think you should always do the floor, but there would be situations where you wouldn't have much of a choice. What you really want to do is do this. And you see a lot of those skidded into things and took. That guy's gonna take it. Hit the wall. Curses. Okay. Anyway, you get the idea. And then being able to clean these up by whacking them with freeze is really nice. So that's what we had. It doesn't mean we have to keep Ensnare, but I do think it's a neat way to do that. Neat and tidy, and also, like, cool. I also, and this is stupid, but I think it's fun, Ensnare is like chains. Somehow, to me, that fits the aesthetic of a snowplow. Like, we've made fashion that is a snowplow, okay? Like, we're at the level where, like, you're making fashion that is a snowplow. And so, like, yeah, chains on the tires. I don't know. To me, the aesthetic of Ensnare fits the snowplow thing. I know that's silly. Vampire, you said Snow Globe scales with strength. So for defending objectives, triple Umbral Avalanche is what I'm rolling, but I haven't updated in a while. Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that too. Like, if we make a freeze build, like an avalanche build, Snow Globe does benefit from strength. It's just like you can do the invulnerability thing. But I think at a lot of medium levels, you might as well just build the strength. So I can get down with like a build that is the Snow Globe avalanche point defense thing, and then another build that is the Snow Plow damage buff thing. And you probably want the damage buffing augments in both places. In my opinion, but anyway, so let's play around with that a little bit. At the very least, this build, like you saw, right, when I did the Ensnare and then you do the Snow Globe thing, you do tons of damage to enemies, but you kind of wanted to just be able to shoot them and finish them off afterward. So it would be very nice to have some of the damage for that. I want to talk about Icy Avalanche too. But yeah, like Freeze Force and Biting Frost, at least, is very at home here. Now, Freeze Force is kind of a bad fit for this build. It's bad because, one, this build doesn't really benefit a lot from duration with the Snow Globes, and even with rather low duration, Ensnare lasts long enough to do its job like I showed you, grouping them all out for the snowplow. And these are also both not affected by strength at all. The tactic just doesn't really benefit from strength. Great for biting frost. The enemies even get frozen when they get hit by the snowplow. Perfect. But freeze force doesn't particularly do much with those stats. This build doesn't really do anything that takes a good advantage of freeze force. So I think that's kind of out. I have a question though. Should we include Ice Wave impedance? Where's Ice Wave impedance? Ice Wave impedance on the snowplow build. Is that good? Let's look at it. Let's look at it. Gonna make it big for you. Hold on. Okay, apparently not. Here we go. There you are. Center on screen. Snowman, welcome back. Hey, great timing. Snowman, what an appropriate returning viewer for the Frost stream. How you doing today? Yes, so Oswave impedance. Oos. Snowman impedance. Why am I interested in this? Well, the whole thing about freeze force made me think, freeze force, you want strength and duration, and the snowplow build has neither. But ice wave impedance, like, you would just need duration to be decent. Maybe we could figure that out. I don't know. Like, maybe this is okay. I don't know. I guess not. I don't love this augment either. Like, this has been very popular in the past. I'm not real high on this effect. It's okay. I just kind of feel like, it's good zone control. It controls space where you are not, but all it does is slow enemies. I've always kind of found like you could maximize this and see what it's like. I just sort of feel like you could just be killing them by snowplowing them, or like doing the avalanche thing, and then they're frozen, not slowed, in a large radial area, not just in a cone, and they lose all their armor, Like, instead of building for the priorities for this augment, you could just do those things. So I don't know. I don't know why I don't have this. I've made videos about this in the past. I'm kind of confused why I don't own it, but for real, I'm not, over the moon about that effect. Biting Frost, however, is pretty much free for this build. I'll talk about Icy Avalanche briefly. So I think this is good on here. Now, we've dumped Strength, which does affect Icy Avalanche, but the thing is, really range. Like, you need to hit a lot of targets for this to ever give you a lot of damage reduction. In my mind, the bigger thing is that this gives you stagger resistance. You won't get staggered by your own explosives. You're immune to status effects. It doesn't give you much actual health, like much actual defense, but it does give you that preliminary layer. Oh, Chad is explaining, I derped, and we can't view Ice Wave impedance in my inventory because we helmets over it, of course. Yes, thank you. I don't know why, anyway. But in my mind, Ice Wave impedance, and then you build for a bit of duration. Like, Icy Avalanche isn't a huge benefit, but it's something, and it's kind of free. I don't know, on this build, again, we're not maximizing it. This build has bad strength. We could recoup some strength in this slot. I don't know. Like, maybe another thing is like the defenses. So the thing about this build is, like, I would like it to just sort of survive on its own, which it currently sort of doesn't. Like, Frost has good base armor, which is excellent, and, Vitality exists. Yeah, we could use, the Umbral mods. I'm not going to have room for them at all, but, like, you absolutely could. You get back up to 95% strength, and then Icy Avalanche, if I had room for it, would be giving you, at least almost 60. again, I don't think this is that great. Like, I think this is overrated. I think people who've played a lot of Rhino look at this and think like Iron Skin, you know? But when you do the math, it's just not that much. Like, even if you hit like 20 enemies, it's just really not that much. But the reason I like this is because having it as a preliminary defensive layer has often felt kind of good to me. And again, the main motivation to put it on this build would be it's sort of free. There's not like much cost. You don't have to build around it very much, and we already have the range. That's good. But yeah, I don't know. Like, if we're gonna use the Umbral mods, like these two Umbral mods, I am kind of keen on just running Umbral Fiber because we have good base armor. Like, that would be very convenient, you know? I would want more defenses, but it would be something. Like, we would have good upfront defenses. And you could squeeze adaptation on here if you really wanted to. Well, what would you do? I mean, let's see how big the radius of the snowplow is if you take off Augur Reach and Cunning Drift. And then you'd be running, so I'm trying to run adaptation here. And then this would be Umbral Fiber. Here, why this? I'm pretty keen on mobility mods for this build. I like the idea of bullet jumping better because your whole build is you position like around the ensnared enemies and then you snowplow them and kill them. So the idea that you would use a mobility mod for that, I don't know, that just makes sense to me. I like these, but I tend to only use them on loadouts where they like really help you do a thing. In theory, we haven't lost that much range. Like, range is really good because it's like the more radius you have, the more area, because circles, it's like, it's good to stack range rather than kind of bad. So I don't know. Again, I feel like Icy Avalanche is okay as long as we have the room because it is basically free passive stagger immunity. Again, you can very cheaply just immobilize the whole map for a few seconds with Avalanche on this build. So that was my thinking about Icy Avalanche. But it's not free if we don't have space, basically. You could also use Molt Vigor for a bit more strength. You could add this in if you wanted a bit more Icy Avalanche strength. Now, I think that this is kind of bad on this build in practice because unless you're specifically going to set up like you have to go operator and then right back into your Warframe and use Avalanche right away, because this build kind of spams its abilities. That's not the end of the world. Like, you could just do that sequence, but it's not my favorite. It's a decent idea though. If you wanted to do the Icy Avalanche thing, I do think like a little strength will go a long way because you have such high range. So I'm down. Does Icy Avalanche do status immunity? Yes, it does. In my memory, in my testing, it did. If they've changed that, I don't know, but the last time I checked, it did. But I don't know. I do have a video in which I do that, and I shoot myself, because what we did in that video was... Oh, I'll show you. So you see I stagger like the Dickens. Yeah. But then if you Icy Avalanche some dudes... Yeah. Life is good. So that's nice. Very snowplow-esque. Snowplows definitely use TNT to clear out the snow. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I feel like you really need, like, at the very least, if I want a mod here, like Biting Frost would be gas for what I just did, you know? Crazy AU said, for Biting Frost to do work, you need some duration so the frozen status lasts. You don't. If you're getting benefit out of it, it'll be good. If you were to fire AoEs at enemies, like if you were going to do Avalanche, and then you wanted to hurt all these enemies and take advantage of Biting Frost, you'll see that without duration, it wears off impractically quickly. But if you're doing a bunch of AoE damage and you do like this to enemies, they're totally frozen long enough for you to get some value out of. Like, that was still good if I was going to hit a big group. Not like the, not like what I just did with the Sobek. You saw that was not a big deal. But if we were doing that snowplow thing, yeah, like that type of damage, I think it's okay if you don't have the duration. Nevertheless, I think it's good to bring that up because a little duration would kind of go a long way, you know? So it's worth mentioning the duration thing. Because it might be worth, like, you could take fleeting expertise over to, like, streamline, maybe. That's a thing you could do. So I don't know, that's a thought. But yeah, I don't know about Icy Avalanche. I feel like if all this does is protect you from staggers, that is not entirely necessary. Like, personally, I feel like that maybe, I don't know. I feel like that's not a good use of an augment slot when we could come up with a weapon that hit in an AoE like that just didn't stagger you if that was really that much of a problem. And the shielding effect of Icy Avalanche is not particularly good on this build. It's neither particularly good nor particularly bad. If you wanted to go the route of going like Molt Vigor, and then you use Icy Avalanche a bit more maximized, you've got pretty good range and pretty good strength. Like, that's not like silly or anything. I'm not too high on it. Like, that's just me. You could drop Stretch. Do Go, you said, I would say for practical use of Icy Avalanche, the range doesn't need to be that big. Which, like, sure, you know, that's not unreasonable. I just kind of question whether this is really doing that much, like, at all. Not whether it is any good in this build. It is, I think, pretty decent in this build. That being said, I also think, yeah, Bastards, you said the cast speed on Avalanche is kind of bad in this build. Like, it doesn't actually do that much. You're not really planning to cast it that much. It would just be something you do for Icy Avalanche. You could kind of skip Avalanche if you were not going to do that. I don't know. I'm not so opposed to the idea that, like, we're saying Icy Avalanche isn't that great, but, like, it's not that great because we're not really building for it. What if we take off all this survivability and then, like, build around it and build some strength? I don't know, like, that, why not, you know? That seems reasonable. Let's look at that. Like, what would that be like? So we'll go strength. So, like, transient fortitude, but now I'm worried about the duration. The Amar set mods? Vampire said, are there any funky mod sets we could fit into this? Could we fit in the Amar set mods for the jankiest mode of transportation with the globe plow? Oh, you want a heavy attack teleport to reposition the plow? Eh. I think that's complete jank, but it's not like a completely terrible idea either. Somebody mentioned cast speed earlier, and I wanted to say that I think Madurai focus is a good choice if you are worried about that. Power transfer gives you the cast speed, and void fuel gives you weapon efficiency that this build might not mind with whatever AoE weapon we're going to use. Additionally, you can get ability strength from Madurai, which, again, if you're doing the icy avalanche thing, the ice avalanche thing, the icy avalanche thing, you may want to do. I feel like this is one of the things where this is why we try to include gameplay for these builds. I'm not entirely convinced that's gonna keep you alive. Like, I'm worried you're just gonna die. But we could definitely try it. How about rolling guard too? This feels like I don't know, like when this goes down and you don't have energy, you don't immediately die. I don't know, it seems like nice quality of life. Maybe I'll get rid of it. Let's try it. Excuse me. How about Molt efficiency? It would be really nice to get some duration back. I think we're doing this. Because transient fortitude is a big gain for icy avalanche, but makes the duration like stupidly low, you know? Which, like, having a having an icy shield over it would make it quite easy to maintain molt efficiency. Again, the kind of thing where we're just gonna have to try. Probably that also makes it worth swapping Stretch for Augur Reach really quick for a minor loss in range in exchange for the ability to get some shields when you cast an ability. This build is going to cast abilities very often, so that would be good on this type of loadout anyway, and it'll enable molt efficiency. We have dropped a lot of range. Maybe I do want Cunning Drift back, but Cunning Drift is a mobility mod. Sarcasm. I mean, it kind of is. You're not wrong. It's, you know, not to position the snow globe, but anyway, let's put it on. There's a good reason to put it on. This seems fine. Okay, so I kind of want an AoE weapon that's not going to stagger me half to death, which pretty much writes off heavy weapons. Point number 56 against heavy weapons, unfortunately. But that's fine. We can just use, like, another weapon. Now, I really like the idea of it being a rapid fire weapon so that you can be... It feels like snow plowing more. You know, I don't really want, like the Brahma or something that does one big explosion. I want the feeling of, like, we've got a machine going and we're, you know, like that snowplow feeling. What am I talking about? You know, like that snowplow feeling. But I just realized we don't have to avoid stagger because we just did this, so we can use the Grattler. I'm sorry. Maybe it's been a lot. Let's take a look at... $3,000 ice armor. Okay. Wham. Wham. Oh. Beautiful. Beautiful. Oh. Nice. Juicy. Just have to kind of prime a little bit and then, ooh, then you get them. Nice. Yeah. I mean, that was a lot of enemies. Like that example I just showed you, that is a lot of enemies. So that was a lot for Icy Avalanche. I'm just going to show again. So there's, you know, it's a bunch of Drac Masters, so they're summoning minions as well. We go here and we do this. And I got 2,300 or so. So again, like, not bad at all. Remember, it doesn't stack up. It saves the biggest one you have if you haven't used Icy Avalanche before. So it's not bad. It's not amazing either. Again, our duration is, like, low, unfortunately. As you can see, like, not atrocious, and I don't have molt efficiency at max rank. Like, you would be getting a little more duration, but not very, you know, it's like 10% more. Which, to be fair, that actually would be like 1 more second. But anyway, yeah, the duration is a touch low. Now, what about doing this? So we trade some strength for that to kind of recoup that duration a bit, and then it'll be a little bit higher. So that's something. Bubonic alt fire? Oh, the Bubonico. Gross, but yeah. Oh, my eyes. Oh, good lord. Oh, sweet baby Jabibus, my eyes. Also, you run out of ammo really quick because this weapon is a recharge weapon. But yeah. Whoa. Anyway, what about using a lower level fleeting? You could do that. I think that's the I'm not eager to cut levels on fleeting expertise here, because this is a build that is going to cast things quite repeatedly. A little bit of a dock and efficiency will add up when it's these expensive, chunky abilities, especially if you're going to use Icy Avalanche and Avalanche a lot. But yeah, you could, of course, reduce it by a little bit. Again, I think molt efficiency and just like ranked up a bit more would mostly solve it. You'd have like about neutral, a little bit worse than neutral duration, which would be like 6 seconds on a lot of these freezes. I think that's long enough if you're doing the thing we're doing to hurt everything. That was the Bubonico Altfire, by the way. Again, we're preventing staggers, so we can just use some kind of heavy weapon like the Grattler. Catching back up a little bit more on chat, though. Diamond Kling was suggesting having the ability in the loadout to toggle to full armor reduction, which I think you could probably get away with pretty easily. We could talk about that. You could, if you wanted, build into this loadout the ability to make Avalanche remove all armor if you wanted to like swap to that. Let's briefly do the math for this version of the build. So we have effectively 100% strength at base. And then if you had a fully ranked Mold Vigor, that'd be 45%. We'll just say 50% because we do actually have a bit more than 100%. So we need 100% strength from elsewhere. Well, we've already got a little bit more. We've got 40% from Moderize Sling Strength. So, okay, we need 60% more. And we can get 25% from Growing Power, which should probably just be on this build anyway. And 30% from Pax Bolt, if you wanted to, which gets you very close. A Zeneric squad mate would get you over the edge. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure how valuable it would be to... How much trouble do you have to go through, really? You'll have the Growing Power anyway. It would really just be Pax Bolt. So if you wanted to fight with a Pax Bolt kick gun, like you notice there's a Zeneric ally, and you bring a Pax Bolt kick gun, and then suddenly your avalanches can remove all armor if you set it up. That's good. Yeah. That seems like, why not, you know? All you have to do is include a Pax Bolt kick gun and make your aura be Growing Power, which I think you'd probably want to do anyway. That's good, totally. Yes, so I'll say Growing Power aura. If you notice a squad mate with Zeneric, use Pax Bolt and your set up Avalanche will strip 100% armor. That is a very, very nice little bonus. Yeah, and then you'd want it to be Growing Power, which I doubt I have the universal forma for, but anyway, I wrote that in the notes. In the old video on Snowplow Frost, you ran a viral spray gun. Did that mechanic change, or is there another reason you're not doing it? So Snowman, I don't remember because that was a very long time ago, but here's what's in my memory. Here's what's in my memory. What's in my memory is that way back when, freezing enemies or stoning them, like with Atlas's Petrify, encasing them in a substance, okay, caused their status duration to pause. That was removed a long time ago. So I don't know if that's what you're referring to, but that is not a thing. That was removed a long time ago. That was a really good thing for Frost and Atlas. It meant that you could load enemies up with an eventually fatal amount of status damage and then just freeze them and leave, and they would die while you were gone, which in practice meant you could have very, very low time to kill on a lot of enemies. But if that's what that was, that doesn't work anymore. I don't really remember the viral part, though. So Snowman, tell me if there's something I'm not remembering. Oh yes, the snowplow double health. I remember. Thank you. Yes, wait, no, that's good. We should do that. We should be able to fit it into the kit gun, right? How about running the primary? This is a catch moon, and this is viral, and then it's not going to do only viral though. But anyway, let's try. and then you do this, and then you go whoop, and then they all get jaboop, and then you do this, and then they have viral, and then you go shaboop, and then some of them just die. Does that not work anymore? Kind of looks like that doesn't work anymore. You saw? Kind of looks like that didn't work. Bubonico Altfire has innate viral, right? I don't think that that's a good weapon for this use case because it's a charge-based weapon that will run out of ammo really quick when you do what I did with it before. Let's just, as a control, we'll use the Embolist, which I used in the original video. Spray paint some viral on enemies, and check it out. Yachigami, welcome back. I missed the limo on Snowplow Frost. What's the deal with that? I will explain. It's really quite simple. A thing of beauty, in fact. When you use a snow globe, enemies in the vicinity are violently thrown backwards, and they take true damage if they hit a wall equal to half of their health, which means they will die if you do that to them twice, as you can see. Now, it's a little bit inconsistent exactly how much damage all of the enemies take, but you saw in that situation, but many of them died. In any case, it does a lot of damage. At medium to high levels, it's a pretty efficient way to do a lot of damage to a group of enemies, and we can tie them together with something like Ensnare. Now, the combo then is to viral them, and then go womp, and then, do they just die? Oh. Yes. Yep. No, it still works. I kind of feel like the doing it at the ground thing doesn't work, or is just not good enough to be worth doing, because that consistently murders everything. So I'm gonna say that Ensnare has been voted off the island. No, I don't think we need to do that. Which means it's time for Ace. I've been waiting for this for the whole stream. I snuck in Blood Altar myself, Ace says. Though only since I was desperate for a place to use it. Yep, as one is wont to be. The relatively instant and arbitrary pounce distance, borrowing the range meant for Snow Globe, is kind of nice, if awkward. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. And Blood Altar, you can only go to enemies, but that's where you want to go with this build. You want to go right in the middle of the enemies. And then can't you just click Blood Altar again and cancel it? Is that a thing? Not exactly alone when I say I don't use Blood Altar that much. I don't know, that's a good idea. Somebody else also mentioned Vile Rush earlier. I'm totally down with a movement ability, even just thematically. That's just fun, and I do think it's legitimately not bad. It does do what this build wants, which is to get up in enemies' faces and do the thing. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the Embolist, because in the original video, I may have talked about it or may have undersold exactly how, this is a bit better than it seems, maybe. You get extraordinarily high viral. Now, remember, this is only viral. It's got over 100% status, and it hits 15 times a second. If you spray enemies with this for, a nanosecond, they get, 5 viral. It's got, you got room for the range. It doesn't do good damage, but remember, enemies are literally just instantly going to die when they get hit by this. Another nice perk is that it's got this mod for Blight. Blight restores energy, great, and it applies viral in the AoE, which just so happens to be a really good fit for this build. So when this goes off, it's really, really good. When you see the Blight effect activate, you can run around snow globing, and anything that hits a wall after you snow globe it will die. Without you even shooting it, because everything will have gotten viral in a big radius. So this is really good on this loadout. Now, it would be really nice if it could be a kit gun too. That would be amazing. If we could also have it be a kit gun for Pax Bolt, that would be really nice. But that might just be kind of a separate thing. My back is very itchy. Not putting Ruinous Extension in the Weapon Exilus slot. Ridiculous. It's almost like I built this weapon 6 years ago when we didn't have that. For real, this gets a little bit of extra space now. Not amazing for this weapon, but I guess Like, what else do you want? Maybe lethal momentum will make it go further? I don't know. That might not do anything here. Orvidos, thank you for the Prime sub. Welcome aboard. How you doing? Appreciate it very much. What's going on? Hope you're enjoying yourself. We're, seems like mostly finishing up Snowplow Frost. Oh, Fulmination. Yes, because it's a flamethrower, so that'll count. Yeah, I mean, I love this weapon, so I'll totally invest stuff in it. If Fulmination is available, we're like, that's gas. We gotta go there. Let's do it. I think this was also from like before. Why is there multi-shot on this? Or like, why is there Hornet Strike on this instead of multi-shot if the point is we don't care about damage? I don't know. Anyway, Softball Brian, thank you for the Prime sub. Welcome aboard yourself. Thanks for being a recent patron as well. Oh, okay. And as I was saying that, Ace gifted 10 tier 1 subs to the channel. You have now gifted 100 tier 1 subs to this channel. Ace, thank you very much. This was awfully a time to do it. I know you're on vacation recently. Hope that's going great at the moment. I know it has been a long wait, so I hope that's feeling good. You certainly darn well earned it. But yeah, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. But yeah, anyway, the Embolist I do think is a really good fit. So we've kind of narrowed down the weapons. You don't have to use the Embolist. You could mod a kit gun with Pax Bolt to have a bunch of viral. Like it doesn't have to be this. But I like this, and I've explained why. I'm gonna bring the Embolist, which then narrows the loadout down, right? If you want an AoE weapon to run through enemies, plowing through them while they're frozen with the Icy Avalanche stagger protection, and you want a kit gun for Pax Bolt, because if you have an ally that has Zeneric with this build, and you activate all your power strength stuff, you get full armor strip Icy Avalanche basically for free just by activating Pax Bolt. And on top of that, you also want the Embolist thing. Your weapons are now locked in. Your kit gun will be a primary that's good at activating Pax Bolt. Your heavy weapon will be something AoE that you can use to plow through the enemies. Your secondary will be the Embolist, and your melee will be like whatever. Melee ideas? I guess we finished the loadout out. This ended up being pretty neat. Pretty tidy. You gotta love that. Doesn't happen very often, at least not to me. I'm gonna swap this Pax Bolt. Good stuff. Merciless is on Hedge? No. But this is easier to stack. Remember that Ketchman has no headshot multiplier, but no special headshot multiplier, but does score headshots. It just doesn't. They don't do any more damage. This seems sort of just better. Also, I want the recoil reduction. Oh well, reload speed is kind of nice too. I don't know. Whoa, the recoil reduction feels great. Okay, that was with the no recoil. Hold on, look at this. The violent screen shake just like completely goes away. Ooh, that feels buttery smooth. You gotta love it. You love to see it. Anyway. Deadhead, yes. Just catching back up on chat real quick. And somebody else mentioned, there's actually a bunch of things to catch up on. Vampire, you said, Zany, I have a personal question. I don't mean to call you out, but why don't your Warframes have any augment polarities on them if you're always going to use an augment? I have two responses. First of all, a lot of my Warframes actually do have augment polarities on them. No offense, but that's a selection bias. Plenty of my Warframes have augment polarities. But reason number two, not as many as you would expect to do. even though I use augments in like nearly every single build, I think it is like frankly just better to you. Almost any build would be better if you included some augments, because augments are just usually really good. But the reason that they're not more omnipotent than they otherwise would be, the augment polarities, is because all the augments cost 9. So much of the time, it reduces the most capacity on the weapon to add like a V or a dash or something. Now, Vampire, you're uniquely equipped to know, because you've watched me for years, that I'm actually an idiot for saying that, because this is the situation I always end up in. I change around the other mods, and if I'd only picked augment polarities, which I'm always going to use, like, completely valid criticism. Frost, you'll note, is a very old Warframe on my account, so in my defense, that kind of explains why I would have that derpy setup. Not a particularly amazing reason, don't get me wrong, but that's why. Those are the two reasons why. Orbidos, welcome. Well, I very much enjoy your support. Thank you. Hope you're looking forward to the second half of our Snowplow Frost stream. That was a Freudian slip. We're not only going to talk about Snowplow Frost for the entire stream. No, we're not. Nope. That was a joke. We're going to talk about other builds that are not Snowplow Frost. Yep, definitely going to do that. What are your current counts on Molt Vigor and Mold Efficiency? I haven't gotten any more, but don't worry about it for now. Yatagami, thank you for Yatagami generously donated all these Molt Vigors, all these Molt Efficiencies. I might have gotten like one as a drop, but you gave me a lot of them, and they've already come up quite a bit. So thank you. We've already been using them quite a bit. Yes, okay, so I would put Growing Power here. I guess I might as well put an Auraforma on the build. Evidently, I'm going to make use of that. Other builds? What other builds? This is clearly perfection. It's true, there's really no point making builds other than Snowplow Frost. That's true. Other builds are sort of just worse. It's true. I just like, I figured some variety, a little palate cleanser with which to appreciate this magnificence, Jafeel. So let's just briefly break down what we've made. Ghoul Saw to ride the Ghoul Saw for mobility. I don't think that makes the build any better, but that's fun, sure. Also, a saw feels like it fits the aesthetic of the snowplow guy. So that's like not the worst. I don't hate that. Can't hate that. Snowplow Frost, yes. We're gonna pick a different helmet ability. What does it do? Well, when you use Snow Globe and enemies are inside it, they get violently thrown outward. If they hit terrain, they take true damage equal to half their health. Guess what you can do? You can spray viral on them and then they instantly die if they hit terrain. No matter what level they are, it just kills anything, no matter what. If it hits terrain, you can just spray this around and go boom and everything dies. Really, really good. And also just like weird, kind of fun, I think. There's a couple other things you can add to that strategy that give it some teeth. One of them is Frost's new passive augment. If you freeze everything, can be with Snowplow, or you could just use Avalanche, you get big crit chance and a huge AoE, and Icy Avalanche negates self-stagger, so you can just blow everything up doing what I just showed. That's nice, and again, it fits the build. We don't really need a lot of duration, which we don't have. We would just want a lot of range, which, again, the build has, and we don't have a ton of static strength, but Biting Frost isn't affected by strength. Freeze, you want this because you're going to end up cleaning up snow globes. The thing about this build is like you dive directly onto the enemies, right? So the snow globe is exactly in the way. It will always be in the way. Like you're going out of your way to make snow globes that are in the way. Please, for the sake of human decency, do not helmet this off on this build. I know it's kind of boring, but your squad mates will thank you, okay? Ice Wave doesn't do anything good on this loadout either. Just take that off. But for what? Well, folks have said a movement ability, and I'm not about to tell you that using Blood Altar is like janky for this use case, this is a janky thing already. I don't know, Blood Altar gives you movement and it only works toward enemies, but that's where you want to go. Fire and Rescue Frost. Sure, Ragnavar. Why? Yeah. Yep. I mean, when else are you going to use this? You know, this is not a fine ability. We've been dumping on this ability so much. It's really not that bad. It's bad because of the competition, as usual with the helmet system. It's not because the ability is like some atrocity. It's mostly because there's many other ways to accomplish all the things this would be good at. Speaking of which, yeah, like Vile Rush, for example, Vile Rush. This is pretty good on this build. It's like definitely better. It's definitively superior. So again, like, I'm not trying to say don't use this. You probably should. I guess I'm not liable to use Vile Rush much of anywhere else. Yeah, I'll use Vile Rush here. I feel bad. I'm sorry. Whatever other ability that was. I already forgot Blood Altar's name after like 2 seconds. Get out of here. Anyway, yeah, totally Vile Rush. And let's play it a bit. Vile Rush feels very Snowplow on theme. That's cool. Blood Altar, you don't need healing anywhere else, but this build already relies very little on health. So I don't think I think that's less of an advantage than it would normally be for this specific build, because we have Icy Avalanche as a layer of defense. This build isn't like particularly going to benefit from the ability to heal itself. We'll probably eventually find, I don't know, Blood Altar is like one of my white whales, right? Like, if we do, you're thinking like this ability is sort of underwhelming. Like, yeah, but if we do, like, you gotta think, we're doing every single frame, every single build. There's gotta be somewhere where this will somehow be the ability you'd want to, I don't know. I mean, it would be fine to just use it as preference on this loadout. It's not, like, bad in this case at all. But by Jove, I will find a place where I feel like this is a really good option. Isn't Blood Altar good for Necro Shadows? Like, it's okay. I'm not trying to say you're just naming things like you can do a thing with it. It's not useless, but there's many other very good helmet abilities competing for space with it while it's doing nothing in particular in those cases. In Aros, yeah, it's not a bad idea, but like, why? There's a lot of ways you can top yourself off, a lot of ways unique to an Aros, a lot of ways that don't use a helmet ability. It's not bad. It does stuff. I just mean, like, I want a place where it's gas, you know, not gas damage. Really good. That's all I'm trying to say. Yeah, again, those are reasonable, creative ideas for it. Can you put Sarin Spores on Blood Altar? No. Probably not, anyway. That really is pretty out there. We're going to play Snowplow Frost in a mission a little bit. We need a companion. Pixel, you said the problem is we already passed where Blood Altar would shine. Necros. We're gonna do Necros in the alphabetical order. We'll come back to that. And yeah, again, like, it's good on Necros, a frame that I think has some other compelling options too. I think maintaining your Shadow's health is a humble achievement for Blood Altar. That's not amazing, it's just kind of nice. And no, Pixel, we did do a Necros stream. That happened. I'm just saying it wasn't really part of the framework order. We are going to come back to that. I just wanted to talk about Necros. I guess Panzer for random viral? Oh my goodness, it's obviously the Panzer Vulpaphyla. Yes. What? No, dude, you don't need the Embolist at all. You have... What? This is so good on this build. Viral Quills is like, if you snowplow anything that's been touched by your Panzer Vulpaphyla, it instantly dies. At any level. Okay, yeah, that's pretty good. Anyway, well, that's very, very good, but unexciting. Of course, it's freaking Panzer Vulpaphyla until the day I die. I'm just gonna do some random mobile defense to demonstrate the gameplay. And then we need to break and talk about other Frost builds. Although we have done some of the stuff. That was part of the Necros mini-series, right? It was kind of a warm-up, like, I just wanted to talk about Necros. Pixel, it's my fault for confusing you and everybody else by self-indulgently talking about Necros for no particular reason, and blatantly upchucking the order ed set. That's on me. Pow. Pow. What? Pow. Was that just lag? Okay, I think it's just lagging. Yeah, it's just lagging. Okay, it's fine. I got worried there for a sec. I thought we were not plowing. Thought we were out of business, as it were. I don't know. I mean, and that might be a concern too. Like, if it behaves that differently based on latency, that's an issue. I don't know. Oh, it could be the whole ability level nonsense. Yeah, you're probably right, actually. That's probably some weird consequence of that. Okay, I do like this. It does feel very thematic as a snowplow thing. Like, look at... Okay, can we get a picture from the front? Look at this snowplow. Oh, it's exactly a snowplow. That is Chef's Kiss snowplow roleplay. Oh, just legendary. Oh my goodness, beautiful. That's just beautiful. I'm crying right now at the beauty. If that doesn't make you cry, you have no heart. Look at that. Beautiful. Beautiful. Majestic. He's trained for decades to snowplow with such grace. Just beautiful. I'm lucky to be alive. Also, for real, because of the range, and, like, we have okay strength, Vile Rush is not terrible. In very low-level missions where the ice snowplow thing is, like, kind of redundant, you could just use Vile Rush and it'll kill everything. Just use it around the objective, like, ring around the rosy around the objective a little bit, like this, and all the enemies will just die as they walk into it. The damage is pretty rad, like, when enemies are right there in the thick of it. Like, again, to low-level enemies, it's not a ton of damage, but it covers a huge area. You just kind of paint a line around the objective, and all the low-level enemies will just die. Some utility for a lower-level mission, I don't hate that. And, you know, these snow globes, are comically big. Like, they're large, you know? They're not even comically big. This is just what you should use if you want snow, like area defense as well, you know? I personally don't think it's worth making, like, a snow globe build if we have this. It does so much of the same thing. You could just cast snow globe, like, more times to defend the objective. You don't need one that has more strength if you have this much efficiency. And you could just freeze everything real quick if you need to. And you can also kill arbitrarily high-level enemies. And when it's a really low-level mission, but you still want to defend the objective, you can just do Vile Rush and everything dies. Yeah, I don't think you need to make a whole other build just for, like, Snow Globe that has strength. But that's just me. I mean, you may very well disagree. But personally, that doesn't excite me that much. This build does also do a lot of the, like, avalanche built with strength thing, although I am interested in exploring, like, there may be other compelling ways to build that that would just be so convenient, so powerful. Big bongo frost damage boosts that, yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that. But, I don't know about Snow Globe. I feel like this is a lot of the value you'd be getting from a Snow Globe build. Ah. And yeah, you could say like, well, that happens incidentally with Avalanche, and then it becomes like you can pick which frost you want to use when you want to defend an objective with Snow Globe, which is cool. And in fact, that's pretty elegant. Let's do that. So the kind of neither or both of them are specifically Snow Globe point defense builds. That's a fairly niche use case as well. Like there's not, it's like literally only defense missions that are not sortie defense, and I guess mobile defense. But even then, like limbo, I don't know. So I like that, Vampire. That's a nice way to say it. I'ma copy paste that in my notes to remind myself. Cool. So that was the snowplow build. Again, like the enemies getting yeeted off the screen, we demonstrated better in the simulacrum, but because I'm leveling up Frost anyway, I'm not going to spend hours of my life putting tons of format in this frame. You get the idea. Yatagami said, as an aside, large globes have a caveat in Corpus Corrupted defensive missions because they can be difficult. It can make it difficult to fend off nullifiers. For excavation specifically, narrow-minded plus cunning drift provides a globe just large enough to protect the excavators while minimizing vulnerability to nullifiers. So I'm not against including that thing I just read and immortalized in the stream archive. Big thumbs up for thinking of it that way. That being said, personally, I think that if your goal is to defend an excavator, there are abilities that are more specifically tailored to that effect. Like, for example, I think Gara's glass wall is pretty nifty for defending an excavator. There are other options too, like you could go for the limbo thing as well. I'm not against the idea of building a frost specifically for that excavator use case, but what I would want would be for that to be a uniquely better build than the alternatives, and I really don't think it is. I feel like that we're about to get to Gara next week. Literally next week? Is that a thing? And we will definitely talk about that there, because I do think Gara is uniquely good at that. That's convenient, because then we have that fresh in our minds. So I'm happy you mentioned that. That is the kind of thing, Yatagami, that like what I'm actually the most excited about as we're going through Framework is stuff like that. I want, eventually, once we finish every single frame and probably go around again, we will have a collection of builds where it's like, for any specific thing you do, we would have a gloriously specific build that just knocks that thing out of the park. Like there'd be, like, you hate excavation missions? Thanks for doing what annihilate them. You're pretty great at it. Eddie Stardust, thank you for the Prime sub for 28 months. You're pretty great at what you do too. That's real nice of you. Thanks for the sub. Welcome back. How you doing? You caught us right around break. Mirrors, we are going to break and then talk a little bit more about the weapon buffing thing, because I want to put Freeze Force on a build, and we were talking about making a build that maximized Avalanche. So we will talk about that right after some thank yous to folks that supported the stream, and then a quick Q&A break. Below decks we go. Eddie Stardust, thank you for the recent Prime sub. Again, I really appreciate it. Thank you for thinking of me. You picked your one Prime sub to go to me. That is awfully flattering. Thank you. And welcome back. Really sorry to hear about your dog. Hope that they passed away peacefully. I'm doing okay. It's been a rough couple of weeks, but I got a lot done today. I'm really excited about there's a bunch of video projects I'm working on I'm not going to talk about right now. You should see them really soon. I'm very excited about that stuff. The Zanypants channel will have glorious vids once again, and I'm quite excited now that I've kind of hold on one sec. Thank you to all the new follows, folks. I really appreciate it. Welcome aboard. Enjoy your time aboard the vessel. I know Fallen Maidens followed while no, I was while I was live yet on Tuesday, right? Anyway, we got some other follows that were while I was not live. So welcome aboard. Hope you folks are lurking away. Or if you have any questions or anything I can do for you, let me know. Excuse me, Eddie Stardust, I was just saying. Yes, personally, I'm at a point in my life where, I kind of ended a very long-term relationship 9 months ago, and I kind of overhauled my entire career 2 times in a row in that time. And I had a lot of people kind of leave my life on not very nice terms, some of them. That's been rough. Like, that has not been fun. I kind of feel like my entire life has been barfed up into my office space, which has been unpleasant. But out of that is like you get to keep the best bits, And so there will be a corner that turns where only the best stuff will remain, and chiseled out of all that, like literal garbage in many cases, I will go to the dump enough times, and what will be left will be only the best stuff. And that's already starting to happen, and it's great. Like, the few people left in my personal life are absolutely fantastic. So for what it's worth, like, it's hard to complain. And I do think that after the multiple different revisions to what I'm trying to make on the Zany Pants channel, I do feel like I've arrived at something that is very good, and I would not have done that if I hadn't gone through that process. So I'm quite excited, but still a bit feeling a bit rushed, overworked, overwhelmed. But we're turning the corner. I think probably in the next few weeks or month. It will be exciting. There's this mixture of like stress because I'm still really tired, and anticipation. Like, I can see how it's starting to get really good. So anyway, I'll talk to y'all in a few. Behold my Twitch ARRchive Parley segment, where I answer questions from people who watch previous streams as a way to entertain you while I hit the restroom during today's show. So this is past Zandy. You're stuck with me for a few minutes. Go grab a snack, perhaps. We got some Q&A today. Question from La Pass. Lap Ass. La Pass? Let's go with La Pass, who asks, are you going to keep the big cursor? Ah, yes, the big cursor. A couple of weeks ago, it was pointed out to me that you can adjust the size of the cursor in the Warframe UI. Like, the pointy guy that is your mouse in menus, you can make that really big. And you'll have seen, or you will see once this ends, I have it at the maximum size. Why? Well, it's very funny, but there is a kind of a reason why. So I don't really stream gameplay as much as I stream builds. So we play the games, and depending on the game, it might be a better or worse fit in the sense that, you play the game as you make a build or not. In Warframe, it's really or not. Genshin Impact would be an example of a game where you don't Buildcraft and play at the exact same time, but you do kind of swap up your build at more regular, natural intervals while playing. So that's a little bit more gameplay. And then something like Hades, the gameplay is quite intertwined with making the build. That happens as you go. There's lots of other games that are examples of that too. You have enough control that you can make a distinct build fairly reliably, despite there being some element of randomness. And that kind of happens as you play to varying degrees. But in Warframe, it really doesn't. Why is this related to the big pointer? Well, it's related to the big pointer because you asked this question, and I got to talk about something for 3 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. Because it helps make things easy to follow, or you could say like it invites people into the discussion. The biggest problem that I have is as someone who, I'm streaming, it's a live show, but we're actually talking about something. There is a thing of substance happening in the discussion. I'm not just sort of humoring people in chat or not talking to chat at all while I play. No offense. If you like that, that's fine. It's just not really the same thing as what I'm doing. I will always say the biggest problem I have as a creator on the internet is that people don't perceive there as being different kinds of creator, and there like really, really are. There really are. Not a lot of people do something other than the thing that most people do, but like I'm not doing the same thing as that. And so my problem is there's a reason people don't do that, right? When someone new comes into chat, they don't know what's going on. Like they don't feel built into the discussion because there is a discussion. They immediately feel like, am I really a part of this? And so unless it's really interesting, they just leave. You should know that I get a metric about how many unique people watch my stream after every stream. And it's generally, like 300 or 400 people. What that means is that if you average it out, and it's not averaged out, but it's not completely concentrated. If you average it out, that means that every minute of discussion, or more often, every minute or more, every single time something is said, one person in the chat does not have any context for what we're talking about. Anytime we respond to something, that comes at the cost of accessibility, which is why other people don't do this. They either do it because they're copying people who know that, or they know that. The people that are very popular as streamers do know that, and the other people don't know that, but they're copying people who are doing it because they do know that. And I know this thing, but I still have discussion. Why? Am I just an idiot? No, I want to stream something I like, and I'm willing to pay the cost in terms of reach. I'm willing to try to make a better impression on fewer people. Again, why is it about the pointer? Well, to be completely blunt, it's just kind of a nice icebreaker. Rather than people saying, what's your favorite frame, which is basically asking me to be reductive about my hobby, that my entire career is about not being reductive about it. It's fine to ask someone what their favorite frame is or whatever, like that's okay. But it's a bad icebreaker. You know, I can just answer it and talk about some Warframes or some builds in whatever other game that I like. But a kind of better icebreaker is for someone to say, hey, why is the cursor so big? And then I say, oh, it's easier to see what specific thing in the loadout we're talking about when we're making builds. Welcome aboard. How you doing today? This is what we're talking about. And it's a very natural way to weave that in. I already try to do that more. I've been really working on that this year. And I do think the cursor, like, it's stupid, it's silly, I get it. But for real, it does kind of weave that in, which is really important. So that's why, my dear LaPass, thank you very much for the question. On with the show. And above decks for a few more thank yous. Quickly again, Eddie, you said your dog had to be put down, and it sounded like that went as peacefully as possible. I'm glad to hear it. Brian, thank you for being my most recent new patron with a recent video request as well. That was pretty fun. I'm looking forward to your next one if you decide to get Parley again at some point. And Audio First with the double $69 tips. You gotta love it. You love to see it. The top tip this period and the most recent tip. And you did actually tip $69 twice. That's just how my system shows it. Thank you very much. I think that Twitch is doing pretty well as far as like me getting up to speed with frankly making enough money to do this as a full-time job. So I have high hopes that once the Zanypants YouTube channel is sorted out, once I get that all buttoned down, we will be going in a very good direction. And it's that type of support that is really encouraging. You know, it's a mix of small, you know, $1 a month patrons and people who are really generous if they're able to. So I really appreciate it. That's all I'm trying to say. Thank you, Mirrors. Welcome back to you too. Speaking of what you were talking about before, yes, let's now discuss a more damage boosting approach to the Froist. Which means, as is tradition, we're going to get some different fashion. What do we got? Yeah, this serious guy, Frost. That's right. We have the meme Snowblow Frost, and now we have the real guy, Big Bongo. I tried to make them, like, have some similar design elements. So you see they both have animation sets where their hands kind of go out a bit, and they have different snowy ephemeras, but different ones. And, like, this is a more sinister sort of, like, edgelord Ice King aesthetic, right? Which appeals to me in its own way. So yeah, we're gonna go with this one. What's this? Oh yes, this is the this one. Yeah, this is for the thing where you can make people have magnetic damage as Frost. In fact, let's just briefly start there. Because it is kind of related to what we're going to talk about, but this is sort of intentionally a silly looking magnetic Frost. If you add Volt's Shock to Frost, You can use Shock Trooper, the augment for Volt's shock that lets you buff people with electricity damage. And Frost already has Freeze Force, an augment that lets freeze, augment allies, did I say enemies? Allies with cold damage. And of course, electricity and cold combine to make magnetic. A quick caveat about... excuse me. I was sighing with passion because it's so good. Definitely what was happening there. Because the build is just so erotic. The elements, right? They don't combine to make magnetic unless the person isn't using those elements already to make something else. It gives them it's like a mod that gives them electricity. A mod that gives them cold is added to their build. So a bit of abstract thinking, you're imagining their mods on their weapon, and it's like you add a mod to that build. And if you did that on a build where you already had cold built into viral and then just heat by itself, you would just get more viral if you put another cold mod on, right? And that's exactly how it works. So you can't force people to have magnetic if they had a good build in the first place, which is why I think jokingly, it's actually not much of a troll build. Like if their build was terrible to begin with, they will get magnetic damage. But if they were doing anything good to begin with, you probably help them by largely just giving them more viral. The shock trooper part will frequently turn their heat into radiation, which is kind of bad. So that, Anyway, these are a really awkward part of the game, okay? That is fun. That is a thing that we must bring up. And of course, you could just make it viral with Nourish. But if you were going to do that, you don't need something like Nourish. If you just want it for yourself, you can use what Mira's mentioned. You can use Theorem Demulcent. Theorem Demulcent. Let's talk about that. So again, kind of the shtick for this build that we're going to play around with is that we already have an approach that so you're going to kill enemies with the snowplow damage thing and the viral as a bit of a combo, and it's very mobile, it's very spammy, it's like that one feeling with Frost, and you can functionally defend objectives with it, although you do have very big snow globes. We're now kind of making a different direction for Frost, focus on strength and duration, kind of what we dumped in the previous build, to make Avalanche into a straightforwardly powerful ability that then, as an accessory, you also get powerful snow globes. We probably won't stack quite as much range or a similar amount of range. It'll be different, taking a different route to a similar destination. So you can use whichever snow globe one you want, and then pick, would snowplow or the avalanche thing fit my taste better, or just be better in this mission. Because this build, this isn't going to be the build, this is just the slot we're using. Because the build, or are we just going to go here? Maybe we just go here. Anyway, because the build is going to be using some more duration and strength, probably more rounded stats for Avalanche, which, it'd be nice to have range and efficiency too. That means that Freeze Force will be really good. And so this is going to be a bit more of a loadout focused on weapon buffing than the previous one, which, you can squeeze Biting Frost in, but that's not the focus. This is going to be more of a damage buffing setup. Well, I mean, that's what I think right now. We'll find out. Probably immediately slapping on Growing Power, by the way. If we're going to be using Avalanche and want Strength and also at least Freeze Force, I think I'm going to use... I mean, this is, just in general, probably the best overall aura anyway. So I don't know. But yeah, and then the strength we're going to want to balance. At the moment, it's quite high, which, yeah, we might well leave it there. I think that on this loadout, I'm also keen to survive by just being tanky. Adaptation and then umbral stuff. Stiff. And don't know if I'm actually going to keep those off, but like just for perspective, you know, Umbral Fiber, we get pretty significant base armor, so that's a layer of damage reduction. And then Arcane, excuse me, Adaptation is another layer. And only one of the layers is activated by taking damage, so we have some upfront damage reduction, which is generally my rule of thumb, my yardstick, my metric for whether or not the build is going to feel tanky on the steel path. We have 2 layers of damage reduction, armor and adaptation, and one of them we have before we get hurt. That generally works as long as you build some HP and you bring away to heal, which pretty much every loadout has. Right, so I'm not going to have the space for that, so we're just going to forget about it for a sec, but we need to remember about the strength. Catch back up on chat more. And yeah, let's talk about the theorem thing. Theorem demulcent. Demulcent. The reason why theorem demulcent works is because it infuses with frosts 1. Okay, so we have to have a discussion about that. I don't want to, but we need to. Yes, there is some weirdness in the game at the moment where the theorem arcanes or theorem demulcent here will like add elemental damage to certain abilities. Now they don't say they're supposed to do that, so the way I have chosen to play Warframe, because it is a mess with this stuff, is I'm gonna assume it's meant to work the way it's written most of the time. So if it does work with like making some of Frost's abilities like do viral or whatever, I'm going to assume it's not supposed to do that. And that's my choice. You choose differently if you like. Now, it doesn't really matter though, right? We can use Freeze Force and just get this buff with Toxin and still do the thing, can't we? It doesn't really matter. So you can still get viral using this, which incidentally, I don't think that's a bad idea. So sure, let's do that. Now we will need a kit gun that uses residual malodor, excuse me, however the heck you say this, residual viremia. Viremia? Okay. Again, this just enables the Theorem Arcane. The damage is, but it turns the Theorem Arcane on. Go figure. For the modest cost of sacrificing a Pax Arcane, I think a big point in the favor of these is that you don't have to sacrifice this Arcane. You sacrifice the Kit Gun Arcane, not the primary or secondary Arcane. Which, like, these aren't worse. They're very unique utility, much more unique utility. But they're also not like a raw output change the way that the primary and secondary ones are. So, you know, it's fine. There's another interaction where you can do where infusing Thermal Sunder still counts as a freeze for biting Frost. That's cool. I'm not sure. It's a really interesting playstyle tweak. I'm not sure that would ever seem very powerful to me though, because you could just like, it's essentially Avalanche. It's cheaper Avalanche. That's interesting. That makes me think there's probably a reason why that would be really good. I suppose being able to do heat is good as well with it. Yeah, that's neat. Not personally something that excites me at the moment, but the idea that Thermal Sunder with Biting Frost is pretty good, and then you could do like viral and heat with abilities. So just to clarify, Mirrors, if you use Theorem Demulcent with Residual Malodor, I mean Viremia, the toxin one, you know, you're trying to say that it makes freeze on a direct hit give 6 stacks of viral. I feel like that's not that good. That's kind of interesting that it's more than 1 stack. Oh yeah, because it gives more stacks of cold, doesn't it? It applies viral stacks in an AoE. I suppose we should try it. The streams are a good place to demonstrate stuff like this, so I guess we should. Again, as long as it wouldn't take too long, which, like, it won't, it's fine. Let's do that. Rainmaker, welcome back. And Ryston, I didn't, like, really properly welcome you back in. Welcome back, both of you. I'm doing okay. It's been a lot. I'm very tired. I'm sleeping very badly, but I am changing a lot of things in my life all at the same time. I was saying earlier, like, my past year has been terrible. Like, it's been really, really bad. And what happens when somebody like me goes through that process is like I'm always looking to take the best bits and keep going, which is in some ways the problem, you know, to not get into it. The conflict was that in my personal life, there were a lot of people who really needed to not communicate better to move forward. They had some stuff in their personal life they had to work through. That's okay. That meant that they really couldn't be around someone who needed to make progress, and I can't be around people who insist on anti-progress. That feels very bad. People who need to not have good communication, like that's pretty toxic, but it's not fun for them either. Like that's fine. But what happens, of course, is like only the best stuff is left, right? Like I tried to have everything in my life be really good. And so when the pieces that I had no choice but to fail at are get blown away, what's left is like, I keep saying over the past 6 months, like, wow, look at this good stuff. Like that was cool. Like I recently revisited my Magic the Gathering Commander collection. I have like 16 Commander decks. They're cool. Like there's some of them were like a bit of a yikes the way I chose to build them, but the ideas were really neat. Or like lots of Warframe builds have come back up, and it's like, oh wow, that's smart. Like when we were doing the Snowplow Frost thing earlier, like you sprayed them with viral and they instantly die to getting hit by Snowplow. What the hell? That's sick. Past Sandy, that's badass. Like, so there have been a lot of happy moments like that too, where it's been like, wow, the parts of my life that are me are really good. It's just everybody else that's just kind of a drag. But not all of you. You know, I've really found streaming to be helpful during this period of time because it's nice to be around a lot of people with whom my goals align. That is the point of my way I'm running my career. We could be making more money and getting more views, but I would have an audience full of people that I didn't like actually relate to that closely. And I want that. That's worth time and money. I don't know. So I'm pretty thankful for all of you lately, really. I'm not trying to be cute. It's a predominant feeling I've had. The few people left in my personal life, I'm also pretty thrilled about. Like, they're pretty good. They're pretty great. They're rad. Into them, love them. Thumbs up. Right, yes. So anyway, welcome back, Rainmaker, and again, Ariston as well. Let's quickly demonstrate the viral thing. So I talked about this before, but with residual viremia and theorem demulcent, Mirrors mentioned that, you know, when you get that toxin buff, that's going to add to some of Frost's abilities like freeze and make them do viral. They'll provide stacks of viral. Now, theorem demulcent doesn't say it affects abilities. This is a spaghetti code thing, in my opinion. And my experience playing Warframe for the past 8 years is that at some invisible moment in the past, this will get removed, and we probably won't, like, I won't even know. I don't doggedly read every patch note. I won't even know this is not in the game anymore. So the kind of player I am, I would rather just say no thanks. I don't think it's that good anyway. Like, you'll still get viral damage on your weapons. You just won't get your abilities doing stacks of viral, which I just don't think that's that good. But it doesn't exactly kill me to test it, so let's just quickly demonstrate it. The upshot is I'll probably use it anyway. So we'll do that. Now there's some fields of viral. No? Oh, there we go, yeah. And then we go pow. And then we go pow. And as you can see, that stacks 6 viral on every enemy you hit in the little splash radius. Oh, probably we need to mention that too. Not everybody will know that freeze has an AoE. It does. It's not very big. Here, watch very carefully. You squint, right? See, yeah, it's got a little, yeah. There's an AoE. Yeah, if you, I'm not saying this is silly or pointless or anything. I'm not excited by it. And I've got my problem with how demulcent is worded and the intended effect of the thing. But if you do want to use it, like, that AoE is a little bit humorously small, and it doesn't seem like you can mod it to be bigger, but if you wanted to make use of it, that is a lot of viral all at once, right? You could increase the range if it is affected by range. And another option would be like, you remember in the first draft of the snowplow build, how we had ensnare? You could put that here, or like some other like larva, pull enemies together, and then you could easily apply it to all of them. That's not so bad. Like, I don't know. So if you want to play with that, I don't think that's a bad option. But yeah, I'm not opposed to running Theorem Demulcent here, just like because it gives a toxin buff with residual viremia, and we have access to a cold buff. Why not have a bunch more viral on a lot of weapons? Like that's also good. And then it will do this until that gets patched out in some invisible moment. Or they decide it's intended and we won't know that either. So anyway, for what it's worth, I'm probably just going to build as if you are or are not going to use this, same difference. So here we are. This is sort of a core so far. I would like to run the other Umbral mods in these slots. So where does that get us with strength? Because another thing for this build is we were originally trying to make like a full armor reduction avalanche build, and then incidentally that would also be like a different kind of powerful snow globe. This would make a single tanky snow globe, whereas this build just spams snow globe to take advantage of the invulnerability or to kill enemies. But anyway, for point defense, right? So what we need to do is figure out, I don't have the forma or whatever, but we need to check how much strength we have currently. And maybe not with blind rage. Let's find out how much strength we have. Okay, so plus 25% from growing power. This will essentially always be active. So that's 139 plus 159, 164%. And then I happen to know off the top of my head that Umbral Intensify gives 77% ability strength when you have the 3 Umbral mods, but now I'm second guessing myself, so let's check that. 50, it is indeed 77%. So we'll add 33% more than what we have. So we were at 164%, and we'll go up to 197%. Okay. Everything is looking all right so far, which means we need a bit more than 50% more. We need like another transient fortitude. Pretty much blind rage. So let's check. Maybe that gives you exactly the right amount. So if we have blind rage, now we have 205% plus 33 plus 25, which should be enough. It's at 250% that you strip all armor. So if you ran 3 Umbral mods on this build, when growing power is active, you will remove all armor when you cast Avalanche. But we have bad efficiency. And again, if Fiber and Vitality are the mods here, you could drop Freeze Force. It's not amazing or anything. And you do already have an elemental buff. But it is nice to have the more viral. I don't know, I mean, it is just more elemental damage. But this does fit pretty well in this build. Like, it's a lot of damage. It's affected by strength and duration. So you have the ability to give a 40-second duration buff to you and all allies that gives 183% cold damage. Like, that's a lot. So that's something. You could drop, overextended, for example. I think the range is not super high at the moment. I want my avalanche to be big personally, but that's an option. I don't know. I mean, I think like the efficiency isn't like atrocious or anything once we're leveled up. At the moment, you actually can't cast avalanche because I'm forming this frost, but you will be able to. Let's just triple check that you'll be able to actually. Frost Warframe. Into the goggle. Frost base energy at max rank is 150. A non-primed frost. Do you get more when it's frost prime? You do not. Oh. So, with this efficiency, you cannot cast Avalanche. costs more energy than your energy bar, unless we do something else. So there's a couple things you could do there. We could, for example, downrank it. Is that still enough? So we're at 2 of 5%, and we're gaining 25, 33, which means we gain, okay, 5%, an extra 10, 13%, an extra 13%. So if we dock this from 99 down to 81, but if you did rank 9 Blind Rage, you'd be fine. And you would be able to cast it, right? You would just barely be able to cast it. Oh, 2 of 5 is the range. I'm an idiot. Sorry. Let's do all the math again because I'm not that smart. Okay, 183%. We currently have 183% strength. Add 25. So we're at 208. Add 33% because that's how much more strength this would give if you ran fiber and vitality. So that puts us at 211, 241, and then we need 10% more. So the argument for removing overextended is getting stronger. All right, well, look, here's the thing to do. We see what it looks like. We see what it feels like when you drop overextended. I think that's the way to go. We get the full armor reduction so we can see that. We have no range currently. But you could... Anyway, I'm going to come back to the strength thing in a minute as well. Remember that 10%? I'm going to come back to that in a sec. But I want to show what the range of Avalanche is like when you have just Cunning Drift. And then people can kind of decide. I left it at a cost where I cannot cast it. Classic. It's a problem. Maybe a downrank overextended. I actually don't have that. That's not a bad idea. I don't have that. I've never used that before. And you could add range, but again, anyway. Sorry, I need to do this. A little bit of fiddling. This gives us exactly the right amount. Except that I'm on a former run, nothing is easy. This is my least favorite thing about Warframe. It's one of those things, right, where like for a lot of people, them unlocking this stuff, like going through the process of forming the frame and leveling that up and stuff, that's what they like. Like that's what they enjoy about the game. But for me, the only thing that would put me off making a build is like actually having to unlock everything is secondary. If you just give me all the tools, I'll have fun for a long time. But there are people who would stop playing the game the moment they got all that stuff. I don't know. Whereas I don't even start playing the game until I have all that stuff. It's just the weirdness of Buildcraft games like this. Yes, we're gonna look at the range, and it's 13.8 meters. And what we're gonna do is go like this. So it would be a radius like that. So you can see pretty small. You have to be quite close to enemies to freeze them with Avalanche if you have just Cunning Drift. Now remember, we do have a mod slot open and everything. I just to show you. I do think you want some significant range. That's really small. Now, as Vampire mentions, we do have a slot open. You can add more range. We opened up this. You get enough from, give or take mods like this. Remember, you don't need, you can do like Transient Fortitude and Umbral mod. I wanted to run both the Umbral mods here, but you could run like a range mod here. And I don't think that's a bad idea. So let's look at what that would be like. So you'll do stretch. And again, this is the kind of thing like I'm doing this because there is no answer. You're just going to have to calibrate it to your taste for that radius. If you don't use a big radius, it's not good. So go figure. 19 meters. That sounds a lot better. Let's see what that looks like. Yetagami, thank you for suggesting the range thing. I'm not doing the exact same thing you suggested. But I think putting it here might be a better visual aid. So you see, that's actually fairly far. But it is still like, personally, I cast Avalanche hoping enemies will freeze quite a bit further away than that. That's just my personal taste. In any case, I'm gonna make my greedy version of the build, and if you're not greedy, then it'll work easier, you know? Blind Rage is still a bit of an issue. It's a bit of a yuckler. Because of Blind Rage, we would need to do something about the efficiency, which means I would probably rather go Transient Fortitude and see if I can figure out the strength thing. So let's try to do that. So Transient Fortitude, 139%, and then before, we're adding 58% strength, yes. So 147 and then up to 197. So we need a little bit more than 50% more. Remember that these slots are, in my build, the way I'm trying to make it, filled with the Umbral mods. This is Umbral Vitality, Umbral Fiber. So we need a little more than 50% strength. You could use Molt Vigor and get 45%, and then have like Zeneric, and you would get 20%, which would do it. So yeah, you would only have the strength when you went back into Frost after going Operator. That's not the worst thing in the world. Like, there are worse fates to suffer once you have a max rank thing. But yeah, Zeneric does have a little bit of energy from Hardened Wellspring. When you're inside the Wellspring area, you get 20%. You can get it from Madurai. Now, Pixel, you mentioned something earlier that is like really what I think too. I think the buffing the strength thing can feel a bit awkward. I personally, I'm not opposed to like setting up a big cast. That's not something that bothers me. My friend Joey Zero calls this combo frame, and your tolerance for combos in any Buildcraft, like, that's important. You need to know that for yourself. There's no answer. It's not objectively like no big deal or not. It's a playstyle thing. That's why there are choices in the game, so you can choose. It's a decent choice. It does also mean you can't do it immediately, so there is some cost. Me, I'm the kind of player, I don't love the idea of having to set that up every time if that's what the build's meant to do. Like, you remember in the previous Frost build that we talked about at the beginning of the stream, we had a situation where like the build isn't meant to have full armor stripping, but it just like happens to be capable of that. If you go out of your operator form and we have a lot of strength buffs just kind of floating around in the build, it's not trying to do that. The build does a bunch of other stuff, but if you just so happen to have a bit more strength, suddenly the build can do it. Like, I'm okay with that, but if the main thing I want my build to do is have full armor reduction on Avalanche, I'm not keen on needing to set it up every time I want to do that. That's just me. It's not that much setup. Like, it really isn't that much setup. As Vampire says, like, you need to go, this is what you need to do to set it up. If you had the whole build, which I don't, you would have done Zeneric for, I didn't equip Zeneric, sorry, but you'll do your aura to gain back energy, and then you'll go back into your Warframe, and because Molt Vigor would have activated, you will, while you have the buff from the Wellspring, which gives you 20% strength, and the buff from going into your Operator, the Molt Vigor effect, you will, for that brief moment, have, okay, well, I didn't do Avalanche, but anyway, you'd have a full armor stripping Avalanche. You can see that I'm getting a bit overloaded from all the mental math of adding up my power strength over and over again, but you get the point, okay? If you put Umbral Fiber here and Umbral Vitality here, you will have a very tanky build that will get the full armor reduction when you go back into your frame after doing your Zeneric thing. That's not so bad. Like, it's really not that bad. I don't know. I'm hesitant to make multiple builds that both don't just do the thing. I feel like a lot of people want a build that just does do the armor reduction. And again, if you're the kind of player that's happy to enable it with a bunch of different sources of strength, I can find that fun in its own way too. Like, I I don't always feel that's clunky. I just feel like there is value to having both. There's value to making builds that just work, and value to making builds that use space efficiently to create clever setups. The fact that this build that's doing a whole bunch of other stuff also gets to fully remove armor with avalanche like every so often, like that's nice. It's kind of a free bonus. But I don't know if I want a build that's like where their goal is to do that. Anyway. Bolt Vigor activates when you cast Wellspring, right? What triggers on transference? Well, Snowman, you can't use Avalanche when you're your operator. That's all I meant. I'm just saying the situation in which you can use the full Avalanche thing would be when you go operator to use Wellspring and then go back into Frost. It's not because going back in, but that's just trivia. Anyway. Yeah, so Please One Time, you kind of made a point I wanted to come back to. I've mentioned a lot of times in this series, as we've been doing this every week, and we will be doing this every week for a very long time at this time, going through the frames in alphabetical order, the primes first, is that like what we've achieved is jumping in and out of operator to strip armor, which Unairu can do. And now, it's not like there are no advantages. Frost does freeze the enemies in place and have a bunch of damage buffs, and like it's not like there are no benefits. But again, part of the convenience of Avalanche, like it's not really that hard to remove enemy armor. The benefit would be doing it in this convenient, like large area. You don't leave your Warframe kind of way. So I do think there is some legitimate qualms with like needing to swap and do the thing, I don't think that's petty. I think it's perfectly reasonable, personally. So yeah. And again, I also very strongly feel that like you could, you might be saying like, well, why not use Umbral Vitality and Umbral Fiber here? And my answer is that you then get a kill to avoid being killed playstyle that the Eximus rework has kind of decidedly made not a thing. The way I like to build frames, and I do think it's a very good baseline way to think about building frames, is that you want them to have some kind of survivability on their own. You can't just CC everything to stay alive. That will not work at higher levels. At least some of the time. You might just not care. That's fine. I do. So yeah, like Pixel, I hear you. And again, this build that I'm trying to make doesn't do that. You will have sufficient damage reduction and health to tank the damage, and then you can also do your thing. You don't have to set it up to stay alive. That's not a problem this build would have. The problem is you do have to set it up to get the avalanche thing. You might as well just make a tanky frame that is using Unairu, and you can put damage buffs on any frame, like Biting Frost is specific to Frost. Anyway, really the way I want to conclude this part of the stream, because we've got to go, that's the time we have, is not, I'm not trying to tell you don't do this. Like if you think like, yeah, Zandy, but I just like this, like why you gotta be so against it? I'm not. The reason I'm bringing it up is because I find this part of the discussion the most interesting. Like this is really what I come here for. I'm gonna raise up the desk and talk about that for a sec. Oh. Are we okay? Cool. Yeah, what I was saying was I find this really interesting. Like I like that point. You decide however you want. It's not like some kind of crime to just do the Frost thing because you think it's no big deal. But in my mind, there is this element of like these puzzle pieces. There's this element of, we got all this way, and after 2 hours of discussing all this way, they're going through that whole mindset, we arrive at a point where it's like making a Frost build that is tanky up front, uses Frost damage buffs, and can fully remove armor with Avalanche seems to be a bit of a dead end, philosophically. You can't really do all those things all at once. and make something that is meaningfully better than just using Unairu. Like, you could just be making a tanky frame with damage buffs and do the armor removal using a focus school. And a lot of frames do that. Like that, what you've built is a different way to do something that many frames can achieve something like equivalent to that. That does not make it bad. That doesn't mean that you can't make a good version of this. Some simple way to do it would be, for example, to simply drop like freeze force. It's not that big a deal. You could just run a bit more strength here, and then you don't have to go operator to do the thing. You could figure that out, and you've just lost some elemental damage. Like, it's fine, but at the same time, keep in mind that you have then removed some of what makes it matter that you are playing Frost. Again, you could just stun the enemies and Unairu them, and lots of frames have a damage buff. This is a really good one. This is a good one. But they are ultimately just more damage. I find that kind of thing really interesting because it is, I'm going to say a word, and it's a word that starts with the letter M, and you know what this word is. It is the real form of the meta. People talk about like the metagame in a game, and really all they're referring to 99% of the time is like what is popular. And people believe that what is popular is just kind of right. Like, why would it be popular if it wasn't just correct? And the biggest lesson that I would want everybody, including my younger self, to understand is that popular things are not popular because they are good. They're popular because they are easy. They're general. They're not correct. They're just like a simple answer, not a good answer exactly. And this is the case here. It takes forever in a game like Warframe to actually get to the point where like the full true meta of the game, all the different trade-offs and their context come into focus. But I love that. It's just really hard. Like I think it takes a long time. But I think it's really interesting. And there is this element of like many builds that we've covered in this series already probably kind of violate that, but it's just hard to know. Like Warframe is so big, there's so many different things in it, different ways to accomplish the same thing. And it's not a particularly hard game. It's not a game where a lot of attention is given to the balance I just described. That's not the focus of our developers in some ways. Developers, if you're listening, I guess my feedback is it doesn't feel like that's something you focus on. I'm not saying it should be either, but I do think it's really interesting because in Warframe it is somewhat emergent. It kind of just happens, and I find it deeply fascinating. Like I kind of love that. There's a way in which, for me, it would be kind of beautiful to make something that I don't think a lot of people actually want, which is like once we go through all the frames, stuff like this will come into focus, and it's like making a build where Avalanche just removes all armor in its current form. It is kind of redundant in the current state of the game, but you wouldn't. It takes a long time to explain why, you know? We've just done it. And eventually we'll go through every frame and have kind of discussed them all. Something I'm really interested in, perversely fascinated by, is think about all these frames. Look at all these frames. Are there any of these frames where there is like literally nothing once you go way down the rabbit hole like we just did? Like for Frost here, there's definitely still stuff Frost is useful for, just because Avalanche in its current form arguably isn't. I mean, it's not bad though. It's just sort of like, why? And the answer would be preference. That's why you'd make a build in general. Okay, sure, yeah. But from a design perspective, if I just want unique tools that, you know, are still good and get the mission done in a timely manner, are there any frames that don't do like essentially anything from the perspective of like the true meta, like way down at the bottom of all that reasoning? I don't know if this makes sense to you. I hope it kind of makes sense to you. You can probably see just by the way my face looks, deeply excited by the concept, like the idea of finding that out, sort of fully having not analyzed, but explored a game's Buildcraft that way to find the true identity of all the different parts. What they mean in the full context of the game's Buildcraft is like, that's what I want. I want that so badly. For Warframe, it is hilariously difficult to do. It's pretty much impossible. But we're going to make a humble most of an attempt this time every week for the next year or two. Of course, we do other things on the stream too. Folks, if you enjoyed the show, that's the time I have for you today. Thanks for joining for Frost Week. I hope that you found it interesting. I hope you had a good time. I sure did with all of you. And thank you for your input. I hope you found that an interesting way to discuss that, since I felt like there wasn't much else to say about like building the avalanche thing. That is what it made me think of, and it excited me greatly. So I hope it interested you too. And again, like, don't let me be, I'm not trying to be down on that approach to making that build. If that excites you, have fun with it. There's the kind of the whole point of that discussion was there really is nothing wrong with it. Like, there truly is nothing that bad about the build you'd make. It's just kind of like potato with a lot of other builds you could make. That was really the only point. And it's kind of weird that you have to do all this Frost specific stuff, and the product you get out is actually very unspecifically frosty, you know. I guess you can still hold on to biting frost. Probably you could mod it that way. Anyway, but I think that's really interesting, and I hope you did too. Yeah, if you did, please come back this time every week. We're going through every frame in the game, alphabetical order, and we're skipping frames that have not been primed. Not because the primes are meaningfully better. They're not. I just don't want to form them out and fashion them multiple times. That's really all it is. So next week we'll be doing Gara, is after Frost. I will try to get Garuda's prime parts in that time, but we might have to pause or something if I don't. But yeah, next week we'll do Gara prime. The Gara stream. So in particular, bring your Helminth ability ideas. Bring, you know, the builds you think are fit to print, things that are very unique playstyles or unique tools, or things that you feel like Gara is maybe the best in some way at. I might disagree, but I want to hear. So yeah, like, we're just ways you've been finding Gara useful, fun, unique, whatever. And we'll talk about them. As always, it adds a lot to have all of you discussing this, so thank you. When these get made into videos, besides just stream archives, they'll be much better for having had your input. If I made them myself, like, nobody would make build ideas that would be as fun, interesting, particular as having a community like this, your input. So thank you for doing that. You helped make a thing with me. One last thing, you know, if you like this, come back this time every week, of course, because we're going to be doing it. We usually start like 2 hours ago. Tomorrow, I normally stream tomorrow, but I am going to stream a bit longer tomorrow. So we'll be starting like 3 or 4 hours ago. If you were free that time today, that time tomorrow, we're going to start. We're going to do 3 things tomorrow. We're going to hang out and talk. I'm going to have a bevy, some coffee, some tea, chat with y'all, just have a little chat. Nothing specific. I'm making it sound all serious. Sorry. There's no topic, really. This is something that's been requested quite often, and usually it's pretty busy. Like, we'll talk about builds and stuff. I'll probably talk about Magic the Gathering, the land-based thing that was requested by Ace. You brought that up. I think lands are kind of interesting in Magic the Gathering. They can be. I'm going to give you examples of why that I've prepared. And we'll talk about what's the other thing? Oh, the live D&D thing. I have some words. And then there is, of course, a Buildcraft game I want to show you. It's not Hades as we've often played on Fridays, but it will be something not dissimilar. I'll talk about it more tomorrow. It's really cool. I don't know. I've been jamming it a lot for the past few weeks, so I hope you find it as interesting as I do. At the very least, it should be intellectually interesting. If you've just spent the past 2 hours listening to me talk like this, you will probably like that. So check it out. It's free. You can leave if you're bored, but I don't think you will be. Just to be clear, Vampire, for me, today is Thursday, so tomorrow is Friday. Anyway, it's in the schedule, but I didn't put the extra time in. And I really enjoyed the stream too. Thank you, Vamper. I had a good time as well. But Ariston, thank you for asking. We are going to stream a little longer tomorrow, so look forward to that. And here's the ARRchive Parley form if you want to submit questions for the break this time next week, that stream. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you tomorrow or next week. We are going to still stream Genshin Impact on Sunday as normal. That's the last stream before the update too. Anyway, cool. Have a good night, folks. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.